Alright, what's up everybody? Today we're doing something a little different, and we're talking about Scythe strategy and the new age of Scythe. It's been a while since I've made Scythe videos, and a lot has changed since I last played. Um, Strategy has evolved and gotten to a point where I've had to relearn certain components of the game. So this is basically going to be taking over my old meta descriptions and how to play Scythe properly and all that. All of that is very outdated. Um, a lot of it is really wrong, so we're just going to be making a new updated guide for playing Scythe and how to optimally play. Gotten a good few games into the new meta, and I've kind of figured out where things have gone. So allow me to basically express where the meta is and how to play. And we're going to be just showing the meta off in two different components of play. And I'm also going to be showing you an example game of the new component of play previous to what I had always been doing. So that'll be at the end of this. So stick around, there's some gameplay at the end. So now we're going to be talking about the two types of strategy in Scythe. And the first type, type 1, is the strategy that you go for when you have the best faction board combination in the game that can get 6 stars at an accelerated rate. So which faction board combination that is takes some experience, and if you don't know which faction and board that is, I'm going to provide a PDF, but I'm also going to say if you and the players you're playing with don't know, um, it is basically always correct to play type 1 if you don't know what you're doing. And that is because the best faction board combination isn't always going to be the fastest to reach 6 stars in a game with players that are new enough that they'll make enough mistakes that this entire video is irrelevant. So this is just what happens when players get more experienced and they become more familiar with what's going on in the game. Type 2 gameplay is the gameplay that most people should go for most of the time in an experienced lobby. And that is because, since Scythe is a multiplayer game, the odds that you're going to be the one with the best faction and board, relatively minuscule. So Type 1 versus Type 2, what is the gameplay difference? Type 1 is SimCity. So just play your board the best you can, win as quickly as you can, just focus on getting your stars out because you're the one who has the best ability to get your stars out, so you want to be doing that before other people can. Learning to play your faction and board with efficiency is beneficial. That just comes with experience, watching people play so you can understand the decisions. So little advertisement for my gameplay there, check out some videos. I've got a few up of some decent Type 1 faction boards. And really, in these type of games, Type 1 games, you're often going to be on 5 workers. And the reason for that, okay, not always. It's about 50-50 whether you're on 5 or 8. However, I prefer being on 5 for Type 1 boards. Reason being is, as a Type 1 board, you're getting your 6 stars. And since you're getting your 6 stars, you're going to need to complete 2 bottom row actions. And the fastest bottom row actions for you to complete are typically tied to your produce and bolster, since you'll be getting extra resources, 5 with a produce action as compared to 2 with a trade action. So taking extra produce actions means that you typically want to be getting the star for the action blow produce and typically the action blow bolster, because upgrading your bolster power combined with your bolster action and the extra stars that typically provides you provides enough incentive that you're often going to be getting both the 16 power star and the bottom row bolster star for whatever that is. It's not necessary that you get both of these stars typically, because games have gotten a lot more oriented towards combat. And this was something that I was hesitant to acknowledge, is just how aggressive the game has gotten in terms of the meta overall. It's a good thing, honestly. So we'll talk about the aggression more in Type 2, but Type 1 ends games faster as well because of the way Type 2 is supposed to play the game. Which means that you're typically only you can skip a star somewhere. Whether that's your 16 power star, whether that's a bottom row action star, whether that's your objective star, whether that's a combat star, is really up to you. It really depends on the game. So yeah, that's Type 1 gameplay. Fairly simple, fairly straightforward, not a lot complex going on there. Type 2 So if you're not the best faction board at ending games, and we'll discuss this more in a little bit, you're going to be playing a Type 2 strategy, as I like to call it. And Type 2 basically is just a fancy way of saying, I'm not ending the game, so I don't need 6 stars. What does that mean? This means we just want to get as many points as possible before the Type 1 player ends the game. We don't care about completing our stars. So for every faction that has speed and is Type 2, so basically any non-expansion faction, Saxony, Polania, Nords, Rustfate, Crimea, if you're Type 2, you're going to be getting your mech star. That is the only bottom row star you're going to be getting. I do not care what board or faction you have, basically always it is correct to get your mech star. And for those factions in particular, the reason being is that those factions are already required to get speed for their gameplay, because speed is simply one of the best things to be doing in the game of Scythe. You're always going to be needing your speed on any faction that has it. So that's already one mech on your way to your 4 total mechs. Every faction also requires typically 1 to 2 upgrades. I would argue 2, but 1 is absolutely necessary. It's the move upgrade. However, since upgrading, you need 6 upgrades to finish your upgrade star, whereas you only need 4 mechs to complete your mech star. So getting 1 mech done is 25% progress. Getting that move upgrade done is much smaller amount of progress, I believe 12%, but that's really just offhand. So don't quote me on that, it's 12 or 17. I don't know. 17, isn't it? Yeah, roughly 17, rounded. I don't know why I thought it was 12 for a second. I could do 1 divided by 6, come on. Anyway, so yeah, so 17% of your upgrade progress versus 25% of your mech progress. I mean, it's pretty clear which one's going to be faster. In addition, mechs provide map pressure, allow you to spread your workers more easily, which we'll be talking about in a second. Just very essential to the game. The game I've posted after this is an example game of a rare circumstance where I do not go for the 4 mech star, but you're going to be getting 1 bottom row star, and typically 90% of the time that's going to be mechs, especially for any faction with speed. So with the Type 2 strategy, we're getting our mech star. We're getting out all 8 of our workers pre-turn 10, which basically just means we're rushing 8 workers. Nothing too complex about that. We just want more workers to hold more territory. Territory is a significant component of the Type 2 strategy, because really the game plan for Type 2 is get your workers out, get your mechs out, hold as much territory as possible, get involved in a couple fights, and you're basically just, that's how you play. You're going to have some combat stars potentially because of how much you're moving. There will be more opportunities for beneficial combat. You're going to be taking much less produce actions, especially since you go up to 8 workers. Typically, you're just not going to produce after you get up to 8 workers. You can, but the cost is significant, so consider that factor in it. I would say overall, I've had some success just with Type 2. Really, your goal on Type 2 is just to get like 5 stars and get second place. Occasionally you can squeeze out a win, especially in non-online games where score isn't available for anybody to see. That's, I think, one of the problems with Scythe Online right now is the Type 1 player won't end the game unless they're going to win, since they have control over it. So with this, as we were saying, up to 5 stars typically. Sometimes you can factor into your 6 star, but it's not necessary, and you don't want to delay just spreading as much as you can. If it happens, it happens, but you don't really force anything. Typically, you're just trying to put 1 worker on every single square on the board. Kicking workers is a pain in the ass. The game really disincentivizes it. As long as camaraderie is not on the board, and camaraderie is the worst mech in my opinion, you're just, like, for somebody to kick your worker, they need to move a mech to that spot. They lose a popularity, and that mech cannot move any further. It's such a pain in the ass to kick workers. So if you have like 1 worker on like 7 different territories, at most 2 of them are going to get kicked. So, and they lose something for it. So it's always nice. Type 2, not too much more to say about that. I think we're just going to break off and discuss the Type 1 tier list in terms of getting you all familiar with it and explaining my reasoning behind certain Type 1 boards. So we'll tie that in and then we'll tie the game in. All right, we're back and we're discussing the tier list for Type 1, Type 2. And these are currently, in my opinion, the typical Type 1s that you'll see in a game. So Tier 0, it's currently 2 banned faction board combinations. I would recommend in your games that you ban Rust Fate Patriotic. It's way too broken. After Crimea Patriotic and Rust Fate Industrial, this is just the third most broken, and it's so broken that you should really just ban it. It's so far better than everything else in the game. It's so strong, in fact, that Mechanical Rust Fate, which you just play like Patriotic nerfed Rust Fate, is the next strongest thing in the game. These two faction board combinations have very, very strong stars. Typically, you're going to see Mechanical or Patriotic as your Type 1 board, and there's a reason for that. They're the best two boards in terms of getting your 6 stars. Patriotic gets you like 30 coins while you get your mechs and your enlists. You deploy and you produce, and it's just completely broken. The board has great upgrades. The board literally does everything that you want it to do and more. So yeah, and plus adding on like Rust Fate's natural benefits, it's just way too broken. You shouldn't allow this. Patriotic should be reserved for factions that are good but not top tier. I think this should be banned online too, frankly. By the way, PSA, please ban it. Anyone moving on to Tier 1, which is the strongest options for this, except for, well, they're somewhat balanced in terms of how ridiculous they are, but Mechanical Rust Fate, Agricultural Crimea, Mechanical Crimea, Patriotic Polania. Agricultural Crimea is debatable. I like it a lot. It has decent synergy with the way Crimea wants to play. Just get all your enlists out, get all your mechs out, and get a ton of combat power in the process. It's very nice. Mechanical, just play similar to Crimea Patriotic, except a bit worse. And Patriotic Polania, just a food available faction with the strongest board in the game. So there is that. There's a debate on whether Nord Patriotic is just as strong as Polania Patriotic. The biggest thing holding Nord Patriotic back is just slight awkwardness in terms of its base compared to the Polania base. It's slightly awkward to get everything done. However, it's just as strong, if not as stronger, debatably. I've been really high on the Seaworthy mech. However, Nord's has a lot of weaknesses that I can't ignore. So I put it slightly lower than Polania Patriotic, just because the Nordic base is pretty shit. But Nordic as a faction is probably stronger if unmolested than Polania, so. Then we have basically every other patriotic board in order. Albion better than Saxony, Saxony better than Togawa, so we have it in this order. The patriotic board is just the best board to win the game with. It gets you 1 billion coins, and it gets you the fastest 2 bottom row actions in terms of producing for enlists and bolstering for mechs. It's just ridiculous how good it is. So typically you're just going to see patriotic. Whoever pulls it is going to be your Type 1. There's some debate actually. Maybe this list isn't entirely accurate because I don't think Patriotic Togawa is necessarily better ending than some of these other ones. Mostly a lot of the mechanicals from top tiers, so perhaps we like move these down to like potentially strong. I think that's better. So put him in this tier. Polania Militant is the most interesting faction board combination on this list. It's one of the strongest combinations in the game that's still currently allowed, and I think it's not broken enough to ban. I would say Polania Militant might be Polania's best board, and it's the best Type 2 board in the game. Militant boards are very, very good Type 2 boards because the Militant board Has a move action tied to deploy, tied to a good amount of coins, 2 or 3. So that move action combined with the deploy is just everything you want with Type 2. Remember, we want to be taking a lot of move actions, we want to deploy all our mechs, we're going to be getting gold in the process. It's just a great board for that purpose. So it's the best Type 2 faction board combination. Polania likes Type 2. The extra movement is beneficial for their faction ability, as well as just the board is pretty decent on its own outside that action. So very big fan of Polania Militant. Huge benefit there. A couple other good militant options, and we have mostly mechanical and agricultural Polania, just because their faction board combo with agricultural can get them to tier 3 very easily. Typically Polania agricultural is like one of the few boards that plays type 1 and gets the popularity star. It's like the exception, I think. You can reasonably expect to get the popularity star with Polania agricultural. Unless you spend your popularity as a resource, but I wouldn't do that if you're the Type 1 board. As a Type 2 board, Polania Agricultural has a lot of options. You're still typically going to end up tier 2, even if you take, like, pay popularity actions, but as Type 1, you're going to want the extra star on popularity. But you're not going to be the Type 1 board if you see any of these, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. Typically, you're going to have one of these in your game. And if you don't know, if you're the Type 1 board, and you can't memorize this list, all I would say is expect that it's the patriotic board. Expect that if it's not patriotic, then it's mechanical, I would say, is reasonable to assume. It gets a little hairy once it gets around here. Like Polania Agricultural versus Albion Mechanical, that's when it really gets kind of like iffy on who's the Type 1 player. So just have to see how it goes. And that's it. Now I'll be giving you the gameplay. I hope you guys enjoy. It's a game on Togawa. I think it was engineering. So I played some nice Type 2, so you can kind of see how Type 2 strategy works. Alright, we're here with engineering Togawa. Our pain is real. This sucks. Don't show me all the things I'd rather be playing. Alright, this sucks so much. Just let them start with 2 power. Why not? They suck so much. Just give them something. We have to figure out how we're getting a combat power. If I trade for oil before I produce, am I going buildings? No, I'm going mech. I should trade for oil before I produce, though. I trade for oil before I produce, and then I can start getting my mechs out off any trade action. I need to bolster? Do I just naked bolster? No building? What's the building bonus? Farms and tundras. Going to diversify production, which is not bad with our faction. Do I maybe go farms and tundra buildings here? I can build here, 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 and here. Or here, here. This building's kind of a waste. That's fine. We need to decide. Are we going 4 mechs or are we going 4 buildings? Just being kickable on every single fucking location. Well, Nords is the only one who can kick me from lakes if I get Sweet on. Maybe I go building. If there's ever a time to go buildings, it's this one, right? Just going 4 buildings casually. Because we're a faction that doesn't need speed. You also need to take a bolster action. I'd like to make use of it. We have a place to put a decent building here, as well as maybe here and maybe here. We have options all over the place for farms and tundras. We're also up against another faction that doesn't have speed and is less likely to be going around kicking my shit. No Pelania, which can hop and attack me on lakes. So we're just going to get Sweet Tone. We're also going to get Toka. Shit. Probably means I'm going to be finishing my mechs anyway. Maybe I'm not getting 4 buildings. I have to trade here. Trade for wood. I could trade for wood bolster and get an armory. This might be the most useful armory of all time. The other option is to put a mill on this oil, which is also strong, right? They're both good options. I think we're starting with Toga. Just being a very important mech to get with no Crimea in the game. We're just getting Toga and Sweet Tone. We're skipping our best 2 mechs. Do I want to maybe weave a move action here? Or just produce? Trading for oil would have been maybe better. I could have got 2 buildings. That's actually a big deal. Trade for oil, produce. Then I trade for steel or wood and a steel. I'm not getting upgrade star. I do want another upgrade. I am producing one more time anyway. Only trade for one oil. Okay. It's not the end of the world. Cost was a little higher than I thought. Are we producing? Yes, we are. Need to get up to 8 workers quickly. I fell in love with the idea of the armory. It was a slight mistake, though. I should have just traded for oil. I could also monument. Monument gets me tier 2 pop. Seems probably worse than these two. The mill giving me produce into upgrade, I think, is the option. But then what? Have to trade. For steel. I might not get Sweeton. I might just get Toka. Toka 4 building. And just hope for third. Building, building, building. Maybe here. Start moving our character up. This way you can plant a flag here, but that would require shinobi. It's probably better spread than Scythe though, if I do get a second mech. I could also just build here, or here, or here. Needed that combat power before we could produce anyway. I could move for an extra resource. One wood. That could actually translate to a building. Holy fuck. Yeah, so we move one worker onto wood, our character onto encounter, place a flag, produce. This is a free produce spot. Get up to 8 workers, get a wood, get the oil we need to upgrade. Upgrade cost of buildings and move. Trade into Toga. Get onto farm. I like the plan. Let's plan some solid type 2. Not perfect, but we adapted to make it work. We're trying out type 2 buildings. Good building bonus, no speed. A lot of things lining up to make it worth trying here. He could be trying to get this encounter on his next turn, which is annoying, but as long as he leaves, I don't really care. So I just want to control this territory. Food doesn't really do anything. 3 resources. That could be an enlist, which translates to 3 popularity, 5 popularity up to. It's a lot of popularity. Pay $3 to get 5 popularity. Worth. Not on a good spot for building it. That's why we're trading. Getting our mech so we can get where we need to be. I didn't place the trap. I was supposed to place a trap here. But the encounter, I forget you have to place after the encounter. He's going 6 upgrade. We're blocking his way out. There's no way around it. Suppose that means I should get the mech out first. Before exposing the wood. Okay, he's going the other way. Awesome possum. It's great to see. I thought he was for sure going to take this. Does he not have Riverwalk? He does not. That explains it. He doesn't have Riverwalk. He has Seaworthy Speed. Okay. To produce and then move. And then bolster and then move. Going to be moving a lot. It's the Type 2 gameplay. How much more wood do we need to finish buildings here? We need 3 more wood. 2 after the produce. So we have the option of either trading or producing again. Trade is just much easier. So we'll trade for the last 2 wood at some point. Unless I pick it up on encounter. It's not the worst thing in the world that I didn't place a flag there, because I can move the worker where the building is over to control that territory. Actually might be right to not place a flag there. Alright, let's produce so we can get to spreading. So much spreading, so little time. Oh. Diversify production. Wood, oil, village, steel, food. We'll finish diversify production. That's awesome. Moving up to wood had that secondary benefit that I didn't even see. Leave one. Drop the combat power trap. Finish diversify production. Incredible. Debating what's the best Riverwalk since we have max 1. Moving over here so I can control these two, or moving over here so I can get the encounter. Controlling these two is better because I'm staying on 1 mech. We'll move our character towards the factory. Or we can just move this worker over. Keep our character safe on this trap. I think I prefer that. This is a free territory, but we do have to take that movement action eventually. And abstaining from moving our character has benefit. What about a produce action? I'll move right now. Look at how much territory we're controlling. This is ours too. This will be ours. We can even spread here. But that might be a little too encroaching. Imagine you would kick this worker for sure. We're leaving him a little space, intentionally. That was our trade for wood. A mine here. Is that really super great? It seems great to me. monument last. We paid $3 for our popularity. We don't need the monument. This is also unreachable. Can't forget the flag. Deploy a mech. One popularity is not a big deal. Getting another popularity next turn. Deploying a mech seems like a big deal. Ronin's not bad. Suitone's quite nice. Allow me to control more territory. Suitone mech can go here. This mech can go here. Game's finally ending. A bot took over. The bot knew how to finish the game more than the human did. Happens. A great time to get to combat. Control this. Attack this. Any more territory? Don't see it. Just chill out. Can I get 2 combat wins this turn? Attacking Albion. Shield doesn't affect me. And then I attack here. Because he has 2 power. So he has 9 combat cards. Can't get a star from this regardless. Does he have disarm? He has all his specs. I'm meeting a disarm here, but that doesn't affect me. Because 16 means that you can lose 2. And still be fine. And we win, I think. We win with engineering Togawa. Holy fuck, dude. What a game. I have to upload this, even though people DC'd. We won this game. Incredible. Type 2 play. There you go.